Our fellow humans, greetings and salutations. Welcome to, well, look, a video in a little bit of a different pace, TBH.
Look, we're doing it's kind of a podcast, eh?
It's
Eh?
podcast-ish. Look, we had this idea, and you brought it
Yeah.
up, and I was already thinking of it, and then the viewers brought it home.
Yes.
The idea of having a bit of a law discussion, I
Yeah, have a
suppose.
discussion of the law of surrounding our joint sim settlements Fallout 4 series, and a little bit of the backstory, I guess, of our characters. Ron and Frank LeDank.
And Ron actually doesn't have a last name.
Doesn't have it.
We'll have to work on that.
Or maybe
Suggestions down
not,
below. Lol, not
you
really.
know.
Don't do it.
As the case may be, but we'll get into that in season 3.
Yes,
Look,
yes.
all right, so we're not going to talk about season 3. There might be some hints here and there, but we don't want to give away some spoilers because ultimately, we're putting a little bit more work into season 3. At least I know I am.
Oh yeah, plenty more work.
Right. So we're really into doing these cinematics and whatnot, and there you go. So it's gonna ramp up. It's gonna be dank,
Mhm.
and we're all looking forward to it. But for the moment, let's talk about a bit of a recap, season 1 and 2.
Mhm.
So what was the deal? You had Frank, who got kicked out of Container City, decided that he was going to set up Franktown. Then Ron came along. Frank didn't like the look of him and kicked him out. He set up Ron Town. Then
It all
Ron,
spiraled into madness.
then, then Ron, being the savage that he is, started started threatening Franktown. I can't even remember exactly what he was doing. Can you clarify?
I don't even know if he had that much he had delusions of grandeur, right? He got rejected by Frank, went off to Rontown, didn't think it would go as well as it did, so then it got to his head. And then he made that sniper rifle, I see you, Frank, and had this idea that he could go after him and become this like all-conquering hero of the Commonwealth. But I don't think he ever actually acted on this idea that he would, raid Franktown and become the master of all.
Almost like a bit of an Overlord wannabe, which we'll get to in a second. Something I know you guys would have found really exciting, but it's not. It's never going to come to fruition. So we'll just spoil the whole thing.
Yep.
And then Frank was just like, hey, fuck this. I don't want to go to the mattresses over this. He goes to Spectacle Island to build Frank City, bites off more than he can chew, goes back home, builds New Frank City in Sanctuary. Then New Frank City gets nuked by Sawyer, who was playing both sides the whole time.
Sneaky bastard.
Infiltrating both organizations. He nukes Ron Town or the Superiority Complex.
Key piece of the puzzle.
Yeah, because Ron kept doing this expansionist thing and had 50 million settlements across the whole Commonwealth. And where we stand now is, I don't want to speak for you, but I assume that Ron has 0 foothold in the Commonwealth currently.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Frank we don't know what's happened to Frank. We don't know if he's MIA. We don't know if he's dead.
It's the same with Ron. I mean, he may or may... The end of season 2, he had, dying words. Have I even decided if Ron lives or dies yet? Look, I can't honestly tell you. That would be a spoiler.
Listen, so... all I'm going to say, I'm not going to spoil anything specifically vis-a-vis who is alive and who is dead. All I'm going to say is it doesn't, it's not set in stone that season 3 is going to follow the exploits of Ron or Frank.
Mm-hmm.
There are other possibilities. There are other characters that could take the front seat here. But, without getting into spoilers here, shall we talk a little bit about how this started?
How far back do you want to go? Are we talking Skyrim days?
Skyrim days, yeah. So, of course, a lot of you may and probably are familiar with my Overlord character and series from back in the day. You guys were really fiending for that. And I suggested, half offhand and half, in my persuasive bullying way, that Kluger do a concurrent series. And then we'll just like, oh, tie it into my universe, and we'll do like a cross channel sort of story going on. And we did do a little bit of that, didn't we?
Yeah, there was
You did have
definitely.
your Skyrim run.
Yeah, because that's where Ron originated. So, I mean, it goes even if we go really far back, I started doing some really goofy role play storytelling kind of red versus blue style machinima with old school RuneScape. And that kind of planted the seed for me to do some more in-depth kind of pre-scripted narrative with YouTube videos. So that's when the whole Skyrim thing started. And that's where I got, what's the word I'm looking for? Like kind of chided into doing an inter-universe kind of collaboration. And that's where Ron was born initially. He was planned much more as, I'll say like a good-natured idiot, I suppose.
Yep.
You know, he was pretty much down the line, lawful good, kind of reluctant. A tale of reluctance. He was a reluctant hero, right?
There you go.
You know, what's he got? The Dragonborn is dead, and you know Ron gets reluctantly dragged into being
Ron
a hero
as an NPC.
Yeah, that's right.
Right.
How am I forgetting this?
Right, because Ron was meant to be an NPC come alive, which is a fantastic idea. And just as a side note, I love Red versus Blue, and I'd love to do something like that, something more like that. And maybe, you know, we're heading a little bit more in that direction in season 3, but not fully.
Yeah.
But you know, you'll see.
Yes.
But yeah, that's where it started, and we did have like one season of a little bit of interconnectedness between the Overlord and Ron. It was sort of like a prototype series.
Yeah. Definitely.
Essentially.
It was far less complex than it was, than it is now, rather. But
just to like run down the line here of what we had planned, because like I said, it's probably never going to happen. So we're totally cool spoiling this for you guys. But essentially, we'd worked out some sort of time travel plot involving one of the Elder Scrolls. Like the Overlord, his ultimate plan was to get a hold of an Elder Scroll, and oh fuck, what was it going to be? Hang on,
I think
it was essentially someone was going to. I can't remember.
Look, it's
all right. Ron gets hold. All right. There's a dragon break due to messing around with the Elder Scroll, and there's some sort of paradox. And Ron, through the Overlord's meddling, because Overlord kills Lydia, who Ron cares about deeply.
Yes.
And then Ron actually morphs into the Overlord.
Yeah.
Not an Overlord, the Overlord.
Overlord.
All right.
Yes.
So the Overlord is actually the future version of Ron, and he creates himself by torturing himself in the past.
Well, he goes down a really, he goes down this super dark path. Like, and we got to that trigger point when I had written that, or when we had written that Lydia gets murdered by the Overlord and his minions. That was like the tipping point for Ron to start getting, like, going rogue and starting to get really vengeful and murdery. And that was meant to be his descent into madness, which eventually leads to the Overlord. I'm trying to remember. We had some sort of narrative tie-in where the Elder Scroll and time travel was used to keep Ron entrapped in this never-ending loop of like a time travel prison, essentially, so it couldn't get any worse. But I can't remember exactly how we had written it.
Yeah, it was a little. This was pre us planning shit on Trello, but it was a little bit convoluted in the sense that one of them had set up this time travel prison for the other to lock them in this never-ending cycle of just having to relive becoming the Overlord.
We did actually write something down.
Oh, we did?
Ron Lord, lol, revealed to be stuck in a time loop constructed by Daedric princes to contain the Overlord's power.
That's what it was. Yeah. It was the Daedric princes that did it because he was getting too powerful.
Yeah.
Oh,
yes. So they lock up the Ron Overlord in the time travel loop, so he can only get as bad as he does, as portrayed in Ric's various Overlord videos.
And that's what, you know, without going too deep into the rabbit hole here, that's what started it off and led to crazy shit like us having this innocuous character, Sawyer, which those who remember, and granted it's an obscure reference, but those who remember from back in the Raider King OG series days, the Raider King was called Sawyer. That was the name of the character, but I never used it. But yeah, just this innocuous character that hints at, oh shit, maybe that is he's more than he seems, and then he becomes the Raider King.
Oh, that was so satisfying as well. And look, the Overlord, the Skyrim Overlord stuff set a precedent of us doing late night brain dump Trello sessions where we would just come up with these ridiculous ideas that ended up becoming what you saw predominantly in season 2. I can't remember who had the idea, because we had this inter-universe thing going on, but I can't remember who first said the Raider King should, or the Raider King, quote unquote, should be somehow involved in this current storyline.
Yeah, it was, you came up with the idea of having someone, a settler in there playing both sides to eventually betray us, because we had to think of reasons to end the season. Like yeah. why would you build up this settlement and then leave it and build another one?
Yeah.
Right? You got to be forced out. It's got to be taken over. It's got to be destroyed. Yeah. Right? So we had to come up with these catalysts to move on to the next season. And yeah, Kluger had the idea of having basically a betrayer in both of our settlements. And I said, hey, why not call him Sawyer and he can turn into the Raider King?
And look, it got complicated as well. Like, to execute it fully, we had the settler renaming mod, and I actually had to talk to King Gath, who's the mod creator of Sim Settlements, to get him to mod us in the name Sawyer so I could name a settler Sawyer to make it 100% tied in. But then it was like, I think episodes 2 and 3 where I mentioned, hey, I tried to play it down as though as if Sawyer's one of the top 200 most popular names in Boston. What's this name doing in here? And try to make no other mention of it. But I mean, through cutscenes and what have you, we always placed him as this key figure without trying to make it too obvious as to how it actually would unfold. So
absolutely,
that was really fun.
It was though, wasn't it? And I hope to do a lot more of that in season 3. Look, it's going to be a big promise because I know I'm going to run out of time at some point. But I'm hoping to do a little cinematic for every episode.
Ooh.
Right. And just so that people at home understand the gravity of the situation here, those are not quick or simple to make. No. They're fun. They're hella fun to make. But they're not, they're not quick.
No. It gets into a pretty cinematic kind of realm, right? You're using the free cam and posing shots, and I don't know about you, but I'd have to teleport NPCs around a lot of the time and get
and I'm
things
not
in the
even
right
doing
position.
Like really complicated stuff. I mean, if you're talking on the level of, I don't know, Shoddycast or something, I'm sure they're using like pose and animation mods and shit.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any camera mods that give you any more control than you can already get from the console, unfortunately.
No, I've looked.
But, like if you want your character to do something specific on camera, just so you guys understand how ridiculous it is, I think the only way to do it is to get a follower, console your PC look onto them. So essentially clone the look of your character onto the follower using the console, and then you order them to do things and you follow them around with a camera as if you are them.
Yeah.
It's asinine.
It's yeah. I mean, to put it in perspective, my season 2 cinematic introducing Ron's migration to Finch Farm and him blowing the finches away and all that stuff, I spent a full day editing and putting that together. So like 8, maybe 10 hours of recording, editing, voiceover, re-editing as I had to change stuff. Like, it can take, if you want to put the effort in, it takes a long time.
Yeah. And I can confirm that Kluger probably spends a hell of a lot more time on his cinematics because they're more complex and very erotic. I prefer to go for a simpler route, probably because I'm lazy. But look, mad props to you and your cinematics. They're savage as hell.
I have a lot of fun doing them. I consider them short films, really, at this point. Not to, like, blow smoke up my own ass, but I think of them more as short films than as a cutscene or as just a little bit of free camming while I talk over it. You know what I mean? I mean, my season 3, yet to be revealed, opening cinematic, is the most complicated one I've done so far. Like, timing musical cues, extra, like, auxiliary sound effects that aren't in the stock game. Look, I got into it. I can't give it away, but I hope. Look, Rick's seen it. We've
I've seen it.
we've shared our cutscenes.
Yeah, we share our cutscenes so that we know, because we've got to keep abreast of the situation. Before we can record an episode, we've got to check in with each other to see if there's anything major that has to be mentioned concerning the crossover.
Yeah.
And it's just going to get more insane. But just to finish up, so this topic here, before we move on to like proper backstories for Ron and Frank. Maybe Sawyer. We'll see how we go. But just to wrap this up, I was having so much fun and was so pleased with the little cinematics that I did for my first episode of season 3, which is completed and rendered and ready to upload at the moment. I had so much fun with that and was so pleased with it that I was seriously considering making the whole season that. Right, it would take so long, but I was just
massive amounts of effort.
Jazzed, yeah. Right? Don't worry, that's not going to be the case. We do have gameplay in there of me actually building.
Yeah.
The next city, wherever it may be, whatever it's called.
It's just coming back to me what I've seen you do so far, and look, it's going to be saucy one way or another.
I got to send you a screenshot of what I've done so far in episode 1, or at least explain to you what I'm doing, because it's gonna be dank.
Yes. Oh man!
All right, so backstories.
Backstories. Look, I think you may have got a little more elaborate with Frank's, as opposed to where Ron's is. Anyway, yeah. I mean, so look, you should probably kick this one off, TBH.
All right, I'll start us off. So as you guys are probably aware, Frank sort of started his story at Container City, which was just a build that I was playing around with, having fun, shits and giggles, and I recorded a walkthrough of it. And just in the middle of that video, I thought, because I'd without thinking and sort of unintentionally, I'd made this sort of class system where the bedrooms kind of spiral down. You have to walk through everyone's bedroom to get to the top. And the guy at the very bottom, I'm like, this guy, bottom of the food chain, and I'll call him Frank, and started making fun of Frank and making jokes at Frank's expense. And that's where Frank was born. But if we delve into the story a little bit, I've decided, Frank is perhaps the illegitimate love child of Mayor McDonough. Mayor McDonough?
Something like that.
It's a tricky one to
pronounce.
Diamond
City's mayor.
Diamond City Mayor, right? Which, spoiler alert, big spoiler alert if you don't want to know this sort of shit, but apparently he is a synth. Now, of course, he wasn't always a synth, so Frank will be the son of the original, which apparently, again, spoiler alert, makes John Hancock his uncle. Right? Now, they probably don't even know. None of these characters know they're related, because it was his illegitimate child and probably dumped at Container City, which isn't there anymore, by the way, I don't think. Let's say it was finally taken over by super mutants. And there you go. So that's how he was sort of dumped at Container City. And, as a bit of a favor to the mayor, who maybe has a couple of shady connections across the Commonwealth. And that sort of those connections didn't guarantee that he would be treated well. But just like his dear old daddy before him, he's got the mayor blood running through his veins, which is what prompted him to leave and set up not one, not two, but three settlements.
Yeah, he would have been through. Oh, I guess Ron kind of has as well in a roundabout sort of way. Almost 4. 3 settlements and an outpost.
Yeah,
really.
Yeah. He's always got a one-up me. Savage.
Look, that was born out of workarounds, though. Let's be fair, because my save file was utterly broken. If we're talking technical here for a second, I had to come up with other shit to do because Spectacle Island was destroying Frank, and so I had ideas to keep the complex going until I realized I wasn't getting any new settlers, so that prompted the whole automatron robotics kind of storyline. But they were kind of stupid and weren't working so well in the complex, so that bred that whole other narrative of more another settlement, the outpost in between. That whole kind of idea was all born out of technical necessity as opposed to storyline. But it's still a cool arc, I think.
Look, and necessity is the mother of invention, and MacGyver is the father.
No spoilers, but That, as fortune has it, it does kind of tie into some ideas that I've had moving the story forward in subsequent seasons. So good. So good. But look, Ron, I don't know if I haven't really thought out Ron's past in too much of a complex kind of manner. Ron was born, like we said, from Skyrim, but then in Fallout, he was really just born out of watching Ric's series. Sim Settlements looked so rad, I wanted to get in on it, and because we did the whole Skyrim thing, we just thought, let's do in-universe roleplay again, which just sounded really, really cool. But putting a darker, more complex spin on Ron rather than just the bumbling, well-meaning, friendly guy was quite enjoyable. So originally, it was just a butt of the joke kind of thing. You know, Frank got rejected from Container City, so I thought make Ron like even more, like an even lower tier where he can't even get into the town of the person who was rejected from the town, the last one, you know what I mean? So that was just meant to be a punchline to get the roleplay started, and it kind of evolved from there. I don't know where Ron's origins might be in terms of who he was born of or where he started, but the best I can think of so far, he's probably got, if you're familiar with the main storyline of Fallout 4, something like a Kellogg kind of character. Maybe not so like marauding and evil now, but, you know, someone of more humble beginnings. Maybe he was a robotic mechanic or something like that back in the day. Whether he was just a bad husband or something like that, and then he was dumped and just left out on his own to start a new life, or maybe whether his family was taken from him, I don't know, but some sort of tragic events in his past led him to try and start again, leading him to Franktown. And that rejection was probably just that final trigger point, which probably just sent him off the edge to go and form Rontown, but then start to get, you know, deeper and deeper into and I've said this in the previous episodes, like throughout season 2, rather than being stupid, he's just a human who started completely lacking in any empathy and just wanted to use people to his own ends, which gives him a kind of like sociopathic kind of psychotic edge, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's like the guy. You ever seen Snatch?
Oh, ages ago.
You know the guy who feeds people to the pigs?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I feel like that's Ron.
If it got to look, it could be Ron. It could be Ron because he was all just about utility, you know. If there's these dead people who are otherwise useless, what else are you going to do with them, right?
Yeah. I mean, because to talk to him, he sounds like an idiot.
Yeah.
But he's actually very cunning. Like he's street smart.
Exactly. He's got that real kind of deceptive, sneaky edge to him. He's just trying to get his own. He's trying to get to his own ends. You know what I mean? His own goals. Yeah. And if people have to die, or things have to change, if buildings need to blow up for him to get where he needs to go, he's going to do it. And like everyone is just assets to to Ron. You know, rather than at least to date, anyway. Like,
interestingly enough, that makes Frank and Ron very much alike. Mm-hmm. They're just from different cultures.
Yeah, and really, Ron's just holding a grudge at the end of the day, or he has been so far. He's just, fuck you, Frank. I can build a settlement too, kind of thing. Which is where it's ended up, and it really hit that tipping point at the start of season 2, where I had decided Ron would not work with the Finches to build up Finch Farm, but would take it by force. Which I think didn't set anyone off, but I think it caught a few viewers off guard.
Maybe before that they didn't really see Ron as the bad guy.
Yeah, well, that's the thing though, because he started as this butt of a joke kind of character, like this poor guy. I couldn't even get into Franktown, lol. And as we got more into this roleplay, I started delving more into not so much his backstory, but his current mental state. Rather than being this moron who doesn't know what he's doing, this kind of creepy, deceptive, manipulative, yet smart individual who's just trying to get the job done. So,
you just made me think of a bunch of teenagers trying to survive the Commonwealth. Oh, well, going hungry again tonight. Lol. Got my leg blown off by a fucking super mutant bomber. Lol.
Out of Radex. Lol.
We're using the Pip Tweet app. Yeah, it's fine.
Which only works in a very local area because you have to connect your Pip boys.
It's beautiful. Got 10 rads again, lol.
Oh gosh. Look. Yes.
Feels good. Feels good. But ultimately, with this sort of shit, we just start playing around. We have some jokes with it. Oh, wouldn't it be fun if wouldn't it be funny if Ron was actually in the same universe? And lol, he's kicked out of Franktown, and then it explodes into this big thing.
Yeah.
And I don't want to build it up too much, because I also feel like we could have done a lot more to connect the universes in season 1 and 2, which is something I personally want to, like I said, do better with in season 3. But there you go. It feels good. It just adds another layer of fun to it.
Oh, it definitely does. And you're right, though. Especially season 1, there wasn't that much interconnectedness. There was just sort of this idea that Ron was connected to Franktown. Season 2, we started to delve into it, for sure, when it came to Sawyer really tied the two narratives together a lot more closely.
Which, just quickly, we had actually planned more cutscenes and whatnot, cinematics with Sawyer, but because of the issues I was having with Spectacle Island, and then also the save breaking apart a little bit, more the install, because mods were disappearing and whatnot, that sort of took a back seat to me just fixing my game.
Yeah.
But look, it sorted out in the end.
And I think for season 3, we at least definitely have a lot more plans to tie the two narratives together. So that should be really, really good. And I have the same ambition. It would be really cool to get them interacting more closely, which is directly correlated to the amount of work that it takes to tie the two series in. The things we've been talking about, like ultimately we might have to go back and forth sharing a lot more content for the sake of editing. Like, for example, even just to get Sawyer looking like Sawyer for that ending cutscene in season 2 meant I actually had to remodel Ron to look like Sawyer so I could get the shots I wanted. So
in the future, though, I'll just give you my Sawyer save, and you can use Face Ripper, I think it's called, to transfer the face over to the save file.
But even that, just to make that interconnectedness occur in a game that isn't multiplayer, it makes things a lot more complex. So,
which, as a side note, you guys may not be aware, there's actually an old mod for original Skyrim that allows you to have a bit of rudimentary multiplayer. We tried it twice. I personally was really excited about it, because I thought this is going to make it fun again for me, and it's going to blow people's minds. It doesn't work. It doesn't work for us. It crashes really bad.
I think the most we got out of it was maybe 2 to 3 minutes of stability until it just crashed out. But then it's so rudimentary that it's basically just your characters are sharing the same physical space in the world, but aren't sharing any other assets or enemies for that matter. So when we first connected, I was getting attacked by a dragon, and I had to run away and try to kill this thing, but no one else who was in the game could see it. So it was a bit ridiculous like that, but at least it offered some rudimentary level of connectivity, whereas this doesn't. So, in the future, like hypothetically, if some character from my world had to appear in one of Ric's cutscenes, then I might have to record footage for him or send over files just for him to edit stuff together. So, but I think we'll do our best to execute it as best we can.
It's probably easy just for me to recreate the character, considering, our internet and whatnot.
Especially mine.
Mine's better now, but still,
yes,
to have to upload the video and also upload footage to you, gets a little dank.
Yeah. Especially it'd be like raw footage too. It's not going to be rendered down.
Ooh, look, that might take a whole day.
Yes. It might even take like a day of pre-recording, then driving to the other person's house with a hard drive.
That's probably a better way to do it.
Yeah. Sometimes just the physical realm is the way to go. But yeah, look, I kind of want to talk about season 3, but what we've got planned, I mean, you should see season 3, about a day or so after this. So we wanted to do this discussion just to try and set the lore that's happened so far straight, so it makes sense when we roll into season 3. So that was really one of the main impetuses behind doing this. Impetuses? Is that a plural? I don't know. Sure,
why not? Impetai?
Impetai, yeah.
Wait a second. Don't you go to the doctor to get that checked?
Maybe.
Anyway. But look, we sometimes take it for granted, but I'm starting to understand that not every little story beat comes across, either because people miss episodes or maybe we just don't communicate it clearly enough.
Yeah.
But you know, I personally get a lot of comments of, hey, does this mean, and then something that is like more or less unrelated to what I'd shown in the video. And I'm like, okay, look, I'm going to have to explain that one a little bit better.
Yeah. Well, it's finding this balance between, because it's probably like bias on our side too, right? Yeah. Because we've actually done so much planning. Just for context, guys, we've done a lot of planning behind the scenes, and maybe you're right, it doesn't all come through. Yeah. So we probably have this bias of, oh yeah, because this happens in the narrative because we've written it down on our Trello board, but then you shoot the scene and maybe it's not 100% clear. So that's kind of tricky, but you also want to try and balance it with telling a story, not just telling facts. Like here we're explaining facts. We're saying Sawyer did this and Frank and Ron did that. It's very non-fiction, I guess you would say, or just explaining canon, whereas the cutscenes are meant to be much more cinematic and portrayed more like a movie, really. So
yeah, and there are two routes, as far as I can see, of doing this, telling this interconnected story. You know, we plan the story out and then we just hit record and say, hey, so, you know, this is happening, blah, 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 blah. Or we do the cutscene, yeah, sure, which takes longer, but also looks real sexy and nice.
Yeah, for sure.
And it's the difference between telling the story and showing the story. And look, I think a balance of the two is probably the best way to go.
Well, to that end as well, we've discussed the idea of doing this post-season summary at the end of each season. So
yeah, just to set everyone straight, get them on board.
Yeah. And that means we can kind of have the best of both worlds. And because I really like that speculative aspect of it, you know, like the end of season 2, like did Ron live or die? You know, I honestly didn't know at that point in time, but the idea of leaving it up to the viewers to interpret, and like Sawyer, you know, the Raider King, what's he up to? You know, how long has he been planning this charade for? Leaving that speculation open, much like a movie in like kind of the second act, like what's going to happen next. All this up in the air kind of information is really fun. So
why don't you tell the people, as of I think towards the end of season 1, how many subsequent seasons had we planned?
So up to this point in time, we have definitive plans. Like from my side of the narrative, I could do season 3 and season 4. So as we were probably halfway through season 1 even, and that late night session, we plotted out 3 more seasons. At least Dot pointed them.
About season 4 at that point.
Yeah. And I think maybe given more recent developments, because we had, for your side of the narrative, we definitely had season 2 and season 3. With season 4, we had some ideas, but nothing really too specific. Yeah. I don't know where you sit with that now, but I know some of our more recent developments might lend itself to a 4th season quite easily.
Look, I haven't nailed down what I'll be doing in season 4, but I've got at least 2 options.
That's awesome. And look, I'm really hoping as well, like, this is the funny thing, right? Because we have so much fun doing this present tense, you know, like doing season 1 in season 1 was really fun, but we were fiending for season 2, right?
Yeah. We almost have more fun planning out, you know, later seasons than we do actually making what we're doing right now.
Yeah. And then executing season 2 was heaps of fun, but then season 3 plans were getting more complex, and then we're like, I was saying so many times to Rick, like, dude, so when are we going to end this season so we can start season 3?
Yeah, you know? Absolutely. Which is a lot of the reason. I mean, a big part of the reason was I didn't want to bore everyone with starting again fully, but that's part of the reason I didn't start from scratch with New Frank City and Sanctuary, is because I wanted to speed things along, because I knew Kluger was running out of things to do because his game was breaking apart and all that
well,
stuff.
We both had game breaking issues at various points in season 2.
Yeah. And then almost mercifully, you know, just the frame rate and sort of script lag issue that I was getting in New Frank City, because there was just so much going on over there.
Yeah.
Mercifully, almost, that sort of allowed me to finish up the season.
There was an aspect of that to it, really.
Yeah.
It was the same with the complex as well, because that started really, really, really chugging. You know, I kind of felt like for the last couple of episodes, at least from a gameplay, like a let's play perspective, they were starting to get to filler episodes to a certain extent. You know, just carrying the narrative to its end. So I think it ended in a good place, really. All things said and done.
Yeah. And that's a little bit of a bit of the problem here, I find. Is just the pace of how this settlement building sort of affair plays out. It's that you're doing more as the episodes roll on, but it's less interesting because you've done it like many times already.
Yeah.
You know, there are higher stakes early on, and there's more detail.
Yeah.
Because you know the names of each new settler that comes in. And when you get to 50 settlers, I'm sure you guys remember, I didn't know who the fuck was in New Frank City.
Yeah, for sure.
Dude, like I was really tempted to do a video of, hey, do you want to see what 50 settlers in one place looks like? But I decided not to.
Oh god, like 2 frames a second.
Actually, wasn't. It was about 20 FPS, but it's just so absurd. It's just a clump. That's because I use the meeting gavel, whatever it is, thing from Sim Settlements.
Yeah.
And they just clump together, and they just follow me around. You know how the settlers, you walk past and
and some of them like spawn in on roofs or like on assets that they don't normally stand on because there's no space anywhere else.
And they're all having conversation, all trying to talk to me at once, right? And the guys in the middle can't get out because they're trapped in the middle, and the guys on the edge don't want to get out because they're interacting with the guys in the middle.
Yeah,
and it's just a mess. Like you got to fast travel out of there.
Otherwise, you're basically doomed. Yeah, for sure. And it kind of that leads into a really interesting point of the double-edged sword of writing narrative and really, almost creating this big old story in a game that's in some ways fundamentally broken. You know what I mean? But also just the fact that you're playing a game that has technical limitations, unexpected turns. You know, like things could just happen unexpectedly, and then with the two of the role play and the story and the game mechanically kind of affect each other constantly. And so you're kind of always pushing back and forth between, well, I want to do this narratively, but I'm having problems with this aspect of the game. Like the superiority complex not being finished 100% in a building perspective was caused by technical issues. And that's what led to the whole robotics storyline, which wouldn't have otherwise have existed. So there's this whole constant to and fro. But then there's also this irony of all this role play and all this story wouldn't exist without the game in the first place, particularly Sim Settlements.
You know me, I love to rag on Bethesda for using an engine from 1982 or whenever. It's not, but you know what I mean, an old engine, and they just keep updating instead of doing a completely new one. But yeah, you can't forget that we wouldn't be able to do any of this.
Yeah.
If it wasn't for these games as buggy as they can be. There are more and more games now that allow us to do this sort of shit. And now that I've gotten Kluger into Elite Dangerous, which we've got to play more, by the way, which does have, a full camera suite to play around with. We're toyed with the idea of doing some stuff in Elite Dangerous as well. No specific plans on what.
Yeah.
But look, the potential is there, and I reckon that'd be really cool.
Yeah, totally. The Sim Settlements as well. I mean, that mod itself is what spawned all of this. So,
good lord, can we just give mad props to King Gath forever? Yes. He's such a guy, and he comes out with all these updates that just hit the spot.
Yeah.
I mean, the Architect's T-Square to basically cycle through all the different buildings.
Yes.
It's perfect.
It's
That's exactly what I needed.
Yeah, absolutely. It's insane.
He's making me want to try modding.
Yeah, he's not just I don't think of him almost just as a modder, right? He must have. I don't know much about King Gath at a personal level, but
I don't even know his name. I assume it's Gath something, but I don't know.
But Either he has technical background somewhere else, I don't know, but the way he approaches the mod, he treats it like a piece of software, really, with regular iterative updates, constant bug fixes, community involvement for bug reports. It's so professional, it's so well done, and that's why it's so successful, really.
And it's the least buggy mod I've ever come across.
Especially given the complexity of it as well.
Oh, yeah.
It's so fundamentally complex in what it changes with settlement building that its level of polish is, look, it's pretty.
It's beautiful, and even the technical side of it aside, just from a game design standpoint, it's stunning.
Yeah,
because how many mods, and not to rag on modders, because they're doing it at a love of modding and love of the game, and that's totally 100% cool. Without getting into the controversial discussion of whether modders should be paid if they want, yes. But how many mods have you played that you go, all right, this is cool, but it's also ridiculous because in terms of game design, it's just completely asinine and makes no sense.
Yeah.
Not law-friendly stuff aside. And then you play Sim Settlements, and it's like it's a whole other game.
Oh, hugely. And I mean, it shows itself in its like asset design, for example. Like there are all these random houses you can get, but that all feel law friendly. That all makes sense. The MVP houses, which are even more detailed and have narrative in and of themselves, but again are still law friendly. I mean, it really lends itself to the level of detail and attention that King Gath has poured into it. So none of this would have existed without this mod. This mod really spawned Ric's series, which spawned the roleplay, which spawned everything that's led us to this point, which is wild. And like that, to me at least, that's why the settlement building is always going to be central to the narrative in one way or another. Yeah.
Which is why ultimately, when I was toying like an idiot with the idea of doing the whole of season 3 just cinematics, which it would have been too much work anyway. But but the thing that sort of convinced me not to do that was like, hey, this is Sim Settlements is the point. We gotta play around with the building.
But then we have briefly talked about the idea of still spinning off. If we have more narrative to tell, we can spin that off into like subsequent either proper series or maybe something cinematic in nature that maybe tells other stories. Maybe like, for example, Ron and Frank's prequels pre what we've done so far could be told in a non-Sim settlement-y kind of narrative.
I'm going to need a B team. I'm going to have to hire an intern just to capture footage for me.
Just to sit there.
Or do that.
Confirmed. But if I could give one like just further like feather in the cap for King Gath.
Yeah.
And I touched on this briefly earlier when I mentioned that he modified the Settler Names mod to include Sawyer. That was that's the tip of the iceberg of what he did.
Yeah.
I don't know. I haven't even asked you, Ric, everything that he had done for you specifically, but I mean, I emailed him back 40, 50 times about the settlement cap bug that I had, and he sent me piles of troubleshooting steps. He sent me like an early access version of the town meeting gavel because I was having problems with my settler accounts in season 1. He sent me a whole bunch of other feedback with other issues that we were seeing in the game. Like there was one location where I couldn't make a settler build a house. It was bugging out. So he tried to troubleshoot that with me. So he's done a lot of work that isn't directly related to just supporting Sim Settlements, specifically for Ric and I as players. So it's insane.
It's beautiful.
Yeah.
And he continues, to help us out there, even though bigger YouTubers have latched on to the mod now.
Yeah.
No, it's not like he's abandoned us.
Mm-mm.
It's fantastic. He's a total guy,
Massive kudos.
Paulie and whatnot, all the original settlers from Franktown, they wouldn't be in the game if it wasn't for King Gath because they weren't names that were included in Immersive Settlers.
Yep.
But King Gath co-wrote that mod, and he gave me a custom version of it. Right? So I'm the only one who has that. I don't think I gave it to Kluger because his regular Immersive Settlers wasn't working.
Yeah.
But he did that just for me.
Yeah.
How cool is that? What a guy.
Very cool. So he did a lot of enabling for us, really, and bug fixing, troubleshooting, explanation as well, just when we were doing shit wrong. So he spent a lot of time that he didn't have to spend helping us execute this. So we could talk about him for like the next half an hour if we really wanted to, but he's done like just mad props to the guy. And support the mod, play it, give it an endorsement. If you have a spare couple of bucks, fling him some on the Nexus. Because he's probably doing this as a passion project. So
yeah, of course.
Help the guy out. He's a gun.
Yes. Welcome to the gun show.
I would flex, but it doesn't fit in this shot, so it's fine. So I'm just trying to think and recap because we've talked about a lot of stuff here.
We have. This has gone longer than I anticipated, but that's cool. I've had fun with it.
Podcast meta. Whether we haven't covered anything that we should have, but I think we're good. I think we've explained everything we need to explain without giving too much away.
Without spoiling season 3.
Yeah.
The thing. But yeah, I think we're finding our niche. This is our jam.
Look, yeah. I mean, and look, to pull away from Fallout 4 and Sim Settlements, just in general, I think we have a really good time just writing stories and coming up with these crazy ideas. We seem to have some kind of quid pro quo. That is hard to say.
Quid pro quo.
Yes. When it comes to just doing this kind of stuff. And like, it's really, this has been like what's the word I'm looking for here? This has been kind of like the seminal narrative creation for you and I think. But if you remove Fallout 4, I think quite easily we could just write narrative in general.
Yeah,
so
we're actually, I mean, it's been left on the back burner now because we got so invested in our Sim Settlement series. But we had actually started brainstorming a tabletop RPG together.
And not just like a mechanical rules-based RPG, but one that actually has predefined narrative, because that's where we seem to like get off the most, is writing the story. So it's just really fun, and we have I think a good balance and a good chemistry when it comes to. It's just like, oh, what if we did this? And then the other guy just one-ups the idea, and we just go back and forth forever.
And then we both just go,
yeah, when it reaches the final version. Both whisper yes, and then you print it.
It's beautiful. That's the, question mark, profit.
Exactly.
That's how it goes.
We're at question mark right now, TBH. Oh, why man? Camera, there we go. Back in focus.
Not going to hate you. That's probably our cue to finish up here. But guys, you know what? Thank you very much for watching, and thank you for watching our respective Fallout series.
Yes.
Just as a final thing here, I'd like to make this clear for the record. Kluger doesn't just record what I'm recording. What's actually going on there is I'm a persuasive bastard.
Look, a little bit. A little bit.
He wasn't going to do Dead Cells. He wasn't going to do it. And I tickled him, right? And I got him to play it, and then he's like, "Listen."
Yeah. Listen. But he look, not to like reopen this podcast when we're about to wrap up, but really we've only been doing Sim Settlements for like a month, maybe?
Couple months.
A couple months. I have a long history of videos that have nothing to do with anything roleplay meta. So while it's a lot of my audience is now new because they've come across as a result of Sim Settlements, so the presumption is all I do is Sim Settlements and Dead Cells, which is exactly what you've been doing, and therefore we're just having the same channel. Where,
look, it's fine.
As a matter of fact, it's a matter of timing. But look, I played lots of Grim Dawn, TBH, so
he's a Grim Dawn guy.
So yes, that is for the record. I feel like I had a closing remark as well, but look, it's fine.
No,
it's
never
fine.
Close on me.
But yes, the support's been fantastic. I feel kind of humbled by the fact that we have enough viewers and enough people have asked that we felt the need to make this video. There's enough people watching where we have to explain the lore, which is kind of cool, rather than just like, well, 10 viewers, who cares anyway? Next video, please. So that's been fantastic, for sure.
Yeah. It's totally savage.
It's so savage. But look, as good as Season 3 is going to be, Season 4 is going to be hot.
Look, I don't know with what weapon Season 3 will be recorded, but Season 4 is going to be recorded with sticks and stones.
Mm-hmm. And then by the time we get to that season 5,
look, if people are still interested, Jesus, they might have moved on to greener pastures by then.
Once we've done 3 seasons, though, this becomes like an actual like internet series. You know, we're gonna have. I
think we can actually. I think there's something in the YouTube settings we can mark it as like the official playlist. Yes. Official like TV show series.
And look, then we get the box sets printed. You know, DVD, Blu-ray.
Hey, look, Red versus Blue is on Netflix, I think. So,
look, I'm sure we won't have any copyright issues when it comes to bringing Bethesda IP onto Netflix for money.
Look, Bethesda, listen, say what you want about them. They seem pretty lax when it comes to, you know, using their footage.
I haven't run into any problems personally. LucasArts, on the other hand, can get fucked, to be honest.
Yeah.
Look, they've copyright struck my 3-year-old Jedi Knight videos, which have probably collectively 200 or 300 views across like 30 or 40 episodes.
Yeah, they'll make bank on that for sure.
Massive. Look, I'm sure they're going to spend that 24 cents real wisely.
It's going to be beautiful.
But look, I think that's all. Guys. Are we done? Should we cut this here?
Yeah, let's cut it off here, guys. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for the support over the last couple months with this series. It's been a hell of a lot of fun, and it's the most positive reaction I've ever had to anything I've put up on the channel. I love that you guys are excited about it. It makes me even more excited about it. Season 3 is going to be savage. I hope you love it.
And likewise for my channel. All my statistics are so far in the green for growth. It's been wild. So, as a closing remark, if we have missed anything, this video is probably the perfect conduit with which you can ask any questions we've missed. So,
yep. And congratulations if you got to the end.
Yes, but use that comment section if you have further lore questions that we can answer without spoiling. Otherwise, we'll see you real soon for the opening of season 3. Yeah. That red velvet curtain's getting pulled back, mate. Yes. Boop. Yeah. Boop. That old school countdown. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. No, it goes to 2, and then it's like whoosh.
You're making me wanna put that in there. Stop it! You're just reopening the conversation. We're gonna end the video, guys.
Look, it's fine. But this spawns the need for a regular Rick and Kluger podcast.
Yes. Yes. All right, guys. We'll see you shortly.
All right, everybody. See you in season 3. Have a good one.
Roleplay Gamer out.